There was hundreds of people that trained me, that took care of that airplane, that made sure that we were safe, that we launched. The men on the ground that communicated with us. Think about in your life that one person, maybe there's more than one, who played that role in your life, right? Who mentored you, who maybe was one of your coaches. What I want to talk about today is how do we be that person for more people, and how do we live a life where we're both successful in what we do and we live a life of significance.
Leading beyond influence. John Ramstead defines the space beyond influence, an area of personal and professional development that gives rise to greater success through a deeper sense of significance and self-awareness.
We need to have a powerful vision for our lives and for our companies, because that is what inspires great people to action.
John is a professional speaker, leadership coach, former CEO, and Navy jet fighter pilot. He's the podcast host of one of the top 100 leadership blogs on iTunes for CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leaders, reaching over 176 countries worldwide.
I'll never forget this day. I was so excited. I had spent 2 years going through flight training, but now I had to go learn how to fly the F-14. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. We were going to go supersonic.
So I went through my checklist, and I'm pre-flighting the airplane, and I crawl up into the cockpit, and I strap into the ejection seat, and I start going through all my final checks, and the engines are roaring, and then they give me the signal I go to full power, and then I go to full afterburner, and the airplane's just shaking. And the deck officer sitting right over here, he looks up at me and he gives me a thumbs up saying, "Everything outside your airplane looks good, sir," and he gives me a salute. And I want you guys to think about that moment, those moments that we've all had in our life. Well, maybe it's a crucial conversation with a teenager or a spouse, or we have a significant illness, or we have a huge business challenge. All of us have had things in our life that we feel like in that moment, man, I just want to hit the pause button. Has anybody ever felt like that?
0.90, 0.92, 0.94. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really doing this. 0.97, 0.99. I'm like, we're going to break the sound barrier.
Very compelling story.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I appreciate that.
Discover your core values and double your success quotient.
I realize there's been many times in my life that life is controlling me and I'm not controlling life. I needed to really connect to what my personal why was.
John Ramstead teaches the tools to discover your strengths, clarify your mission, and discover the why in what drives you to achieve.
He looked at me with a tear in his eye. He goes, "You know what? I've been in this industry for a very long time. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually proud to say that this is what I do because I know why I do it."
Strategic thinking, leadership skills, development, and execution form the framework of John's leadership lessons.
When they connected to their own personal why, and they really started leading themselves, connected to their value, and then they brought that out into their company and started doing that for everybody in that culture, the culture transformed. One thing that all these leaders that were the highest performing leaders had in common, that was self-awareness. And that is the first step in emotional intelligence. It was 5 years ago that I had an accident that I should not have survived. And I got asked to go up to Montana for a retreat for a nonprofit I was part of. And for lunch, we were going to get on horses. What am I doing? I'm holding on to that fence rail so the horse wouldn't walk away from the rail. And all of a sudden, that horse bolted and took off, 90-degree turn, taking off galloping, and I'm laying flat on my back, and his rump is smacking me in my shoulder blades. And I remember thinking to myself, about 15, 20 yards in front of this fence, this is not going to end well. That's the last thing I remember. And the top bar hit me across the skull, and I crushed the entire left side of my skull. I broke my neck, I lost 8 teeth, broke my shoulder. The next bar down hit me across here, I crushed my rib cage, I broke 4 ribs, and I punctured my left lung. As soon as they got to the hospital and assessed me, they called my wife, and they said, "Donna, you need to get up here to Montana and bring the boys." What happened was I spent 6 weeks in the ICU, and I spent 20 months at Craig Hospital with a severe traumatic brain injury. It was only by just divine providence that I was able to get through this.
But I started thinking from a legacy perspective. What have I left in Donna? What have I left in my boys? What have I left in my friends and my associates and in this world that the use of my life was lived so it would outlive my life? Every single day, each of us has a second chance. Connect to your passions and your values. Help somebody else to do that, to connect to their dreams, their calling, what they're meant to do, and do it in a way that they can then help somebody who you don't even know to just replicate that process. So thank you all very much. God bless.
For booking information, contact John Ramstead.